Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of big finish stuff, one episode at a day, whatever, 7 days a week. And today, on the 15th of May, 2018, we are starting Season 9 of Doctor Who. And now, this is interesting because Season 9 is one of those seasons which I haven't actually rewatched a lot of, mainly because it's one of the contenders for sort of the weaker John Pertwee seasons. I don't think I'm controversial in saying that, but we're starting with the first serial of Season 9, Day of the Daleks, and I'm going to be up front to, throughout this episode. I am watching the original TV broadcast version, not the special edition included on the DVD. Oddly enough, I think this might be the first time I've actually watched it, and it not being the special edition, because I usually, last time I saw this, I believe it was the special edition that I actually watched. And, well, we're starting with episode 1. This is, of course, was hyped up to be the return of the Daleks, since Evil of the Daleks, and you can see that they don't actually go with, what's nice is that they don't necessarily go with the cliffhanger of reveal of the Daleks, even though the title of the episode is Day of the Daleks. We knew the Daleks were coming, and this story is written by Louis Marks, and you can tell that the Daleks weren't quite meant to be in this one. Like, originally it was just supposed to be Ogrons, which, yeah, the Ogrons are an interesting race, sort of servants of the Daleks, introduced in this story. They've also got their own, I guess, plotline species. But here's the thing about the Ogrons, is that this first episode is really interesting, though we don't get too much Dalek action. We open at night, there's a world peace conference, because Unit's in the story that Units is taken care of, and things are going wrong, because, again, what is it with, it's always the Chinese delegates who don't want to show up for the peace conference, and because of that, the peace conference can't go on, and the world may be on the brink of war. It's trying to set up quite a lot of tensions that a lot of things are writing on this, but here's the thing, there isn't too much seeing of the tension. Like, it's trying to do too much with very little. Like, the tension itself is like, yes, it's tense, but there isn't much to be tense about. Like, yeah, the world might end, but they sort of, the characters don't really take it as the world could be coming to an end. We need to make sure that everything is good for this conference and nothing goes wrong, and to stay strong in our convictions. But they just don't. It just is they're very blasé about it. Oh, it could end, and this guy who's hosting the peace conference has seen some ghosts. Well, we're going to investigate. He's of course a politician who's like, I don't care. And see, ghosts aren't real. Ha ha ha. I'm Mr. Politician Man. His name is Styles, Sir Reginald Styles. And, we found a guy on your estate and with a weapon that's not from this time period. I don't believe you. Well, so the Doctor and Jo essentially, they explain, well, there's this time machine thing, and when they get it to work, they actually send the man back to his own time. And we see that, like, in the future, it isn't actually said in this episode, but I believe it's the 21st or 22nd century. I'm pretty sure it's the 22nd century. That, like, well, he's the controller of the world, I guess. And as such, he's like, he's actually working with the Daleks who are there. They have 3 Dalek props and that's it, and that's kind of a problem for the episode. Also, the Dalek voices are just badly performed. It's going to sound odd, but it's almost like no emotion has been put into the Dalek voices. It's just a very monotone voice with a bunch of pauses in between syllables. I'm not going to do that for the entire thing because that is dull. It's again, this episode, it's got a lot of just production flaws. It's like, we're doing Daleks, but we don't know what we're doing with Daleks. So, yeah, like, there's a reason that for this story in the special edition, Nick Briggs redoes all of the Dalek voices. And it's just, yeah, it's, but as of course I'm doing the the episode that is, the episode of from, the broadcast, so I can't really complain, but yeah, it's a bit annoying. Like, you have this bit at the beginning where the Doctor is fiddling with the TARDIS console, and the Doctor and Joe appear, like, from the future. And it's playing around with time travel. It's obviously trying to do some time travel ideas, which I quite like. That's enjoyable. Just as an episode, it's kind of dull. Like, you have, like, the production values are kind of blah, they aren't very good, which is weird because this is top of the season. You should probably have the most budget. Usually it's the later episodes of the season that look the worst because the budget has run out by that point. But yeah, they don't work very well. So I'm going to give Day of the Daleks, episode 1, a 7 out of 10. It is the 15th of May, 2018, and I just finished watching episode 2 of Day of the Daleks. And the first thing that strikes you about this episode is how incompetent director Paul Bernard is. Mainly because he makes his biggest and most famous mistake in this episode, which he continues for the entire story, in that when we finish the cliffhanger repeat, we hear the cliffhanger sing, and we cut almost like we're about to cut to credits, which I don't want to say is just weird, but, well, it's just that's just a really weird cut and a weird way of doing this sort of thing. Like, seriously, why? Why did no one try to stop him from doing it this way and tell him, hey, no, actually, when we do these cliffhangers, we let them finish. We don't actually do that. Though it's nice that she's actually, just reusing the footage, which sort of helps indicate that we're actually moving away from the sort of old-fashioned way of doing Doctor Who episodes where, like, we'd have to reenact the cliffhanger, which is something that obviously doesn't have to be done anymore because we're now in 1972, and it's easier now to reuse footage than it was way back in the 60s. But that being said, we have an episode to get to, and this episode, Louis Marks proves that he doesn't quite know how to write for Jo Grant, as she just makes a bunch of dumb decisions. The Doctor even says, like, oh, you're asking all these dumb questions. And Jo just isn't portrayed very well. Katie Manning does a great job as the actress, so it's no fault on her part, but it's just the writer's fault for writing her as kind of an incompetent for, like, the entire story. She is like, oh, well, can't we just fix all this? I don't know. And you know what? You really feel bad for Jo because of that. Really, it really isn't her fault because she, is actually trying her hardest to be. Katie Manning's just doing her job, playing the part as she does, and she's great in the role, because, well, of course she is. She is Katie Manning. She really knows what she's doing, and she's good in the role. But we have a lot of this where you have the gorillas, Annette, Shura, and the other one trying to explain to everyone that, hey, well, this Sir Reginald Styles was a complete, he essentially caused the problems of, well, what happened was that he had the distinction of, ruining the peace conference. They are convinced the Doctor is Reginald Styles and they're gonna kill him. But yeah, Jo gives up the location of the gorillas to the controller, and a Dalek goes back in time, sends a bunch of Ogrons back in time to deal with them, causing a shootout, which is decently choreographed. It's not a perfectly choreographed sequence, and there are a lot of parts of it that could have been done a lot better, but at least it looked okay. It wasn't as bad as, say, some of the other stuff in this episode, like a lot of the first episode, or making that flaw of repeating the cliffhanger sting. But yeah, it's just as an episode, it doesn't really feel fully fleshed out. You also have the Brigadier being kind of an idiot, and, well, the Doctor refusing to listen to him. He's been sort of pushed to the background. Same with Unit. They really haven't gotten their best in and just now the Doctor realized the Daleks are here. Like, that's our cliffhanger, and that's not a very good cliffhanger. Because it's sort of like, well, here's the danger. The Dalek is there, and the Dalek isn't even like attacking. It's just sort of sitting there, which is weird. In the tunnel, like, seriously, this episode is just generally all over the map when it comes to just weirdness like this. There's this and that. I also have to say, again, the Dalek voices, we hear a lot of Dalek conversations, which they're not very good. Because the Dalek voices aren't good, the Dalek conversations are really hard to listen to. Not only to listen to, but just to pay attention to, because you're like, oh, please let it be over. The Daleks they're just badly voiced. They don't really sound very good. So I'm going to give Day of the Daleks episode 2 a 5 out of 10. Alright, it's the 16th of May 2018, and I just finished watching episode 3 of Day of the Daleks. Oddly enough, a better episode than episode 2, but not by much, mainly because, again, Paul Bernard's direction gets in the way of having this really get a solid episode, and the Daleks don't do much. Again, a lot of the problem also comes down with, again, Daleks don't do much. A lot of the episode is spent in the future, so we don't have too much unit, which was oddly a highlight of the first 2 episodes. That was really where a lot of the fun stuff of the story was coming from. But let's talk, and a lot of the biggest problem with the episode, though, is probably Jo Grant, considering she's played as kind of an idiot. We don't really get an idea of what the Daleks are doing. They have slave labor on the Earth. I have a feeling that they're just trying to redo their Dalek invasion of Earth plan of let's hull out the core of the Earth and place an engine inside it and go and use the Earth as one giant ass spaceship. But other than that, it really isn't a thing. There's a nice little bit where the Doctor gets put under a mind analysis, and we see his older incarnations and photos, which I guess are nice. It's nice to see, but it's not all that interesting overall. And that's our cliffhanger, which is friggin' weird. Like, it's a weird episode. Like, people love this one, mainly because I think the novelization does it a lot better, where you don't have the visuals and you aren't bogged down by, well, what's essentially a lot of bad, I don't quite want to say bad acting, because it's not quite bad acting. It's more just bad direction. Like, Jo is an idiot for, like, the entire story. Like, it's not just me who thinks this. Like, she is literally told, she's like, well, these people are good because they've been good to me. And the Doctor's like, well, they're evil. We don't need, both of us don't know the whole story. It's sort of a dilemma where the Doctor just seems to be right because he's the Doctor. And I mean, I get it, he is right. But he also probably didn't want to make an enemy of the Controller so quickly. Like, he does, and that's just like, it's just a bunch of sort of, it's a dumb move, Doctor. Like, why would you do that? Like, he could probably help you if he was on your side. Maybe the Daleks would think, oh, it's fine, everything's okay, nothing's bad. Again, it's one of those dumb sort of decisions where it's like, the Doctor, you didn't think it through all the way. Like, you really probably should have. This isn't everything good. And you have, of course, the Gorillas ready essentially to continue with their whole let's destroy everything, and we still need to go through with our plan, even though that plan really hasn't gone anywhere. Like, the episode hasn't progressed too much. I mean, it's a decent enough episode. Like, I enjoyed it much better than the other 2 episodes of this story so far. Well, at least episode 2 of the story. Again, just Jo is dumb. It's not. People thought this was a great episode, like a great story overall. It really isn't anything special. It's not. This is an episode 3. We have one more episode, and that's it. Like, for the big return of the Daleks that was very hyped up, it's kind of really lackluster. And, like, you have the Doctor shooting down Ogrons in the last episode. You have the guns, they don't really shoot anything. Like, that's annoying. It's an annoying episode overall. I'm gonna give Day of the Daleks episode 3 a 6 out of 10. Alright, it is still the 16th of May, 2018. I just finished watching episode 4 of Day of the Daleks. And this episode is the actual episode that decides that it's finally about time to get around to, well, explaining the plot of the story, which is something that I hate to say it, but you really should have done earlier on. Like, you shouldn't be explaining the plot in the final episode of the story. Again, it's not something that you should do. It really isn't, that really doesn't, well, it doesn't quite work, overall, mainly because, well, it's one of those things where, well, as a story, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, just because we exist, that doesn't mean you can do it. It's one of those things where you sort of, you get the feeling that they knew what they wanted to be, but it didn't. Like, basically, the idea is that Sir Reginald Styles sort of created, sort of created the conference as a ruse just to blow everything up in the end, which doesn't really have any basis in reality. It's one of those things where it's like, well, we believe it because it's crazy, and it is a crazy sort of idea. It doesn't really know how to be its entire story. Like, it's really not all that good overall. It doesn't quite work completely, and it just sort of feels bad. Like, that's it, and then you have the Daleks going to invade the Earth and make sure that their version of the future events happen. And then when they do that, they only have 3 Daleks. Yeah, the climax of this episode is really, really bad. Overall, it's not a very good climax, and it doesn't really, well, feel like a climax. And the Doctor just ends on a one-liner, sort of forgetting the whole statement earlier of, like, that first scene. Like, the Doctor and Jo never actually went back to the past to meet their past selves. Like, it just, that doesn't happen. Like, it's a plot point that's just sort of left dangling there and is never actually picked up. Like, really, it's not a very good plot point. It's just like, well, we think we're doing this, so, that's sort of how it's gonna be, which I don't like. This is not a story where you can really BS your way into it. Like, you really need to have, if you're doing a time travel story, you need to be able to do an actual time travel story. Like, go full, go full with it. Don't just be like, well, that's about it. Like, well, we've got this, we've got this story, and we've got this thing where things are going on, and you know what? It's something that really you don't quite know what's happening. Again, it's not a very it's not a very, solid way of doing the story. Like, it doesn't quite feel like it's, an actual conclusion. It's just sort of like, well, we're done now because we ran out of time. So, So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where really the story is just like sort of there. It's like, yeah, we've got the idea, and then it's got some decent scenes. The direction's nice, even though, well, as usual, um, it's like, well, we've got some nice acting, but it's just you have the problems with the cliffhanger stinger replaying itself again. Joe being dumb. Seriously, it's just is sort of there. So I'm gonna give Day of the Daleks episode 4 a 4 out of 10. That being said, as this is the end of the Day of the Daleks, we give a total score of 5.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and it'll return the next time we will take a look at the next John Pertwee story with The Curse of PELADON.